Yes, yes, yes. You are welcome here. This is Being You, the Afterthought. Hello there, Kay, the life coach. No DMs. Like, don't DM me. Book an appointment. No, that's right. I have someone on IG and they have Kay, the life coach. No DMs. I am not coaching for free. I'm with you. Anyway, yes, this is the Being You Afterthought. And the Being You Afterthought is episodes that we do. I don't do it every week. It just depends. I was thinking about doing it every week, but right now it's not. It's just when I feel it. And it comes from when we do a show and, you know, I find myself thinking about some things that could have been said, that wasn't said, or maybe clarify. So all of that goes on in the back of my head. And I'm thinking, oh, I should have said that. I should have clarified this. And Leslie and I, my producer, who you've seen on screen, you know, we've been talking about that. And, you know, I've had people listen to the afterthought and say they like the afterthought. Now, Kay, the life coach, if you want to see both myself and Leslie on screen, you can go to youtube.com/LC radio. Right now, you're just going to see me, but I'm sure you don't mind seeing me. I mean, come on, I'm good enough. So yeah, the afterthought is really that, an afterthought. In this past, for those of you who don't know, Ade presents Being You is every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, that's 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. UK time. And so you can catch it on Facebook, the Being You podcast page, and you can catch it on YouTube as well, which is youtube.com/LC radio. LC radio. Oh, I just thought of something. I don't know if Leslie caught that. She did catch it. Inside joke. We won't go into that right now. All good. All is well. All good. So, yeah. So we did a show this past Tuesday, and the topic was the whiteness of spirituality. And before the show, I kind of thought, okay, I know that can be triggering for people, but it's just because it's going to be triggering doesn't mean we don't talk about it. And the other thing was, it's a conversation that needs to be had. You know, most of us in the BIPOC community, which is Black, Indigenous, people of color, know about that. When we end up in a conference, there may be few Black people in there, and it's mostly white people, mostly white females, some men, and, you know, we're like little chocolate chips. And then sometimes on stage, you can have a conference and you only have like probably have about 20 presenters, and you have 1 or 2 or 3 people in the BIPOC community. There was one conference that I was part of. What is it called? In Atlanta. Well, it wasn't just in Atlanta. Not Whole Life. I can't remember, but there are many conferences like that in the spiritual community that happens, and we don't see a lot of representation. It's important, especially if we're talking about diversity. If we're talking about spirituality, I believe that, spirituality is about our true essence, the essence of humanity, not just a certain race of people. And part of it, I think that there's definitely politics in spirituality as well. People don't want to talk about that, and the way things are packaged. So we had a show. Rickie Byars joined me. We had a great conversation about it. And one of the thoughts, like Leslie and I, if I can get her name right, and I had a conversation before the show, and we were like, "Ooh, we should have recorded this." The show took a different direction, which often happens sometimes because the energy of people participating, people watching, changes the dynamic of the show, and it was fine. But I find myself thinking, a comment that was made. I thought it was made several times, but I only saw it one time when I went back to look in the chat. And it's often things that, particularly those of us in the spiritual community, we like to say color doesn't matter only when we're talking about human race. It's the frequency, it's the vibration, it's the heart, it's the soul. But when we're buying a house, when we're buying cars, when we go to the grocery store, we say, I'm making salad today. We get red pepper, green pepper, yellow pepper, olives, And when we make it like, oh, look how beautiful that looks. Look at all these colors. But when we talk about humanity or people, we want to say, oh, color doesn't matter. And I think I won't necessarily call it a spiritual bypass, and I will call it a spiritual bypass. And for me, my work is to not just make the invisible visible, but to speak to the wholeness of what it means to be human. And so I have some thoughts about color doesn't matter. It's the vibration, and Leslie have some conversations that we've been having. So anyway, Leslie, I've been doing a little talking. I'm going to throw it over to you, just to whatever you want to intro with, whatever you're feeling.
No, I'm excited that we're continuing on this conversation because I love the direction that it went on the show. But there was something, and we were sort of talking about, like the colonization of spirituality. And yes, I can understand about vibration. I'm all about love, light all day long. But when I step back and look at this aspect of the colonization, of making it transactional and taking away from that feeling aspect of things that are unnameable, of moving in with my body, like really making it about vibration. It's almost like there's this aspect where it gets where we're pacified into utilizing these words, saying that, oh, it's about vibration. It's like, okay, but I need to live that vibration. I need to move. I need to experience. And that's not just in dialogue, Yes. So, yeah.
And that's the thing about when we say it's not about color, it's about vibration. Every color has a vibration. Yes. So in order to have a vibration, that energy needs to filter through a certain physical mode, if you will. So the vibration, when a singer tunes into the vibration that we call music, it's the way they sing, it's the experience that they've gone through, the meaning that the words have to them. When they release that, when they become the filter for the vibrations, like, oh my God, we feel like it's our story, it's our conversation. Somebody else can sing the same song, and we're like, yeah, it was great, but all right. Because maybe they don't have an emotional connection to it. So when it comes to the physical body and how we're showing up, whether we're brown or pale or white, so, none of us are black. So I think, we do the black and brown people. Anybody that's anybody who's not white or pale, because some people say pale, some people say peach, which I think, I don't know if it's peach. We're brown. I'm on the beginning of the brown stage. I'm the brown of the browns. But all of that matters. And we live in a time where the things we've avoided, the things we don't want to talk about, is literally showing itself, whether we want to talk about it or not. But of course, it's showing itself because we're opening for it. And there's some things that we just need to give voice to. There's some times we'll feel angry about some things. We got to give voice to it. It's not just about, I feel angry about that, but I'm just going to forgive myself and love and light. I don't know why I do that. It kind of feels kind of judgmental when I do it, but it's fine. Anger can bring you to a place of liberation. You and I were talking about this, the righteous anger, the conscious anger. Do you want to say more about that?
Yeah. So I kind of want to go to it still back to the vibration of color, right?
Sure.
And what it triggered for me too just now is thinking like maybe it almost is another layer of actual the judgments that we have on black and white, right? So if we're saying, then it's like, oh, if it's black, then we can't talk about it. It's dark, it's evil. Right. Yeah. And then white is good. So now, like, if we're saying it's not about color, it's vibration, and we're utilizing this, because if I'm sad, I'm blue. If I'm angry, I've got that red energy. So what if I'm dismissing that aspect when it comes to spirituality or to our skin color? What am I really saying? I'm really saying that I have these judgments based on like black and white as a color. That's even beneath like these understandings of it's all love. And I think that is something that I get a little upset about. It's that incongruence that frustrates me. And it's a lot of a lot of great talk, but when it comes down to actually doing the work, as we say, that's where it falls through. And then it's like, oh, well, we'll just pass it off like it's all love and light and it's all this. And I was like, no, I think I have a right to be frustrated about this, because I think this is the foundation from which everything else is built upon, all of these institutions. So everything else that we're actually arguing about is like, what are these real beliefs underneath all of that, you know? And right now, like when I talk about it, I get upset, and I think that's conscious. I think that's righteous. I think it's allowed to be present so that it can move on, rather than just stuff it down like, oh, don't pay attention to that. Oh, that's a reflection of you. You're thinking this. I was like, well, I mean, I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of sense when I think about it.
Yeah, it does. And that's why I don't know what you hear the echo? Yeah, it's really bad, actually. I don't know why. Okay, I think it's gone. I think it's our ancestors interrupting and like, I got something to say. They're gone. We outed them. They're like, okay, they know we're here. I'm calling in the ancestors, the spirit guides who want to communicate. And you know what I'm highlighting, because it's so easy to think of the black and white, the human, because it's such in a diaspora, it's so hard for us to address it, because we're up against white supremacy, injustice, oppression, slavery. Those conversations are very heavy. So some of us want to get away from it, and I get it. But in truth, healing is messy. And if we want to do the work, if we're really tired of having leaders who are highlighting the parts of ourselves that we don't want to see, we can make it easier. Take the responsibility of one person and we do it ourselves. Make it a global healing process. If we don't, we're going to have, air quotes, one person representing all that shadow self. And we think once they leave office or leave a job, get fired, then we won't have to deal with that anymore. What you can't be with won't let you be. It won't let you be. And we have to, the idea is not to spiritual bypass what needs to be seen, what needs to be acknowledged, because the gift of this work is when we address it, we actually make it lighter. When we face it, I'm going to go to my, if I'm going to pull it up now, one of my favorite quotes. It's actually medicine. And that I came across when I watch Ma Rainey's what's it called? Black. I can't remember the part of it. I'm going to Google it, so I want to make sense of it. It's on Netflix, and I love Google. Yeah, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Okay, or Bottom, and Black Bottom or Black Bottom. However, August Wilson created the play, and then I think Denzel Washington and some other people made the movie. And there's a quote, because after the movie, if you're watching on Netflix, you can watch the movie or the 30-minute presentation. In the presentation, they shared something that August Wilson said. He said, your willingness to wrestle with your demons will cause your angels to sing. And just breathe on that. Just breathe. Just take that in. Your willingness to wrestle with your demons will cause your angels to sing. And for me, so the flip side of that is when we're not willing to wrestle with our demons, our angels are not singing. To sing is to express. So when the angelic aspect of ourselves, the vibrational pattern, the vibrational sense of the vibrational, how do I want to say it? The angelic vibration of ourselves can't sing when we're not willing to face the demon, when we don't want to talk about color, when we just turn our necks. We don't understand why we are feeling depressed. We feel depressed because we're not expressing. We're not expressing. If you're depressed, you have to express. Depression is using your own energy against yourself. So rather than let it out, it's going in. Yes, I'm going to understand that some people who are clinically depressed, that's not what I'm saying. But those of us who have the moment-to-moment experience, where I just feel depressed. Everybody feels depressed at some level. For some people, it's a chemical thing. It's a chemical imbalance. So when you are expressing, It's a different kind of experience. So if we're willing to wrestle with our demons, to look at how people are being excluded, how people have been made invisible, the injustice in the world, and even, I mean, I hear things about the spiritual community. I heard something today that I won't go into, but it's easy to think, wow, that was in the spiritual community. But of course, we're all human beings in there, but we want to pretend because we're in the spiritual community now, we don't do stuff like that. BS. I'm gonna just throw it over to you because you know I have a lot to say about this topic, and I know you do too.
Right. Well, I mean, first off, I'm just thinking this. That's that basic principle, but like as above, so below. Like your branches only go as high as your roots go deep. Is how I've heard that. So that, I mean, I love the quote you said as another way, another spin of putting on that. And as you were talking about the invisibility, I was reading something today, and they were talking about the term individual, right? It actually means indivisible.
Yes.
Right? Like, so that we are all these components as one. And if we're just, the problem is that we are divided. We're all, and anything divided cannot stand on its own or stand, united. So as we're going in these aspects of like, well, I'm just not even going to look at that. Now you're denying it. Your awareness of it separates it from you, right? Like you can't remember and get back into wholeness and completeness without addressing these things, without talking about these things. And yet it is so stigmatized. It is so fearful. It is like, well, we've come so far, we can't go there. It's like, because we've come this far, we go there. These are the next steps if we want true growth. Yeah, I am very passionate about that.
Yes. You said something. Go ahead. Go ahead. Well, you said something that reminded me of an Audre Lorde's quote. And I really believe this is what causes the division. This is what causes the pain in anything, even in our own lives, where we don't understand. And because I've always felt like, why are we talking about, we're different, but we have more in common than different. Let's focus on what we have in common. Nah. We focus on what we have in common and focus on what makes us different. There's nothing wrong with that. And she said, it is not our differences that divides us. It's not our differences that divide us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. I mean, just think about that. It is not our differences that divide us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. We are afraid to celebrate differences. What did I hear recently? I heard something about, it's a quote by Dave Chappelle. Like, just because I disagree with you doesn't mean I don't like you. I can disagree with you. I can still love you. The differences, unless we are really willing to look at the differences and all that comes with that, whether it brings up judgment. If I'm looking at somebody because they look different from me or from another country or they speak a different language, if I look at it and I'm judgmental, that's my stuff. It's not them. I'm the one thinking the thought. If I appreciate them, accept them, that's me. And we externalize this process. And we're in a time now where I really feel like we're being forced to come back to self, to be reminded that we are part of a global family. We're seeing it with the pandemic and we're missing it. Well, I won't say we're missing because I don't know, but it's easy to miss when we focus on just the virus. When we say it's a virus, but we're being shown that what happens to one can affect the other. So much so that we are encouraged to protect ourselves. We're breathing in the same air. They're like, cover your nose and your mouth because you may be carrying something that you can, what is it? There's a word. Transfer. I guess that works. Transfer to somebody else. We're breathing in the same air. So whether we're willing to look at it or not, it's there. And I feel like those, particularly our white brothers and sisters who are doing conferences, it's time for them to wake up. The ones who are still, I get it, I understand why, but still feel like, oh, I'm surrounded by people that look just like me, and this is a spiritual community, and that's okay. My question is is that really okay? Unless that's your guidance. If that's the spiritual guide, the spirit is telling you your God, your divine, your spiritual guide is saying, just have white people because it's necessary. It's different. It's different if you were talking about affinity groups. That's different. But if you're having you can heal your life, whole life expo is the one I was trying to remember. They don't do that anymore. I did three of those. Well, I went to 3 of those conferences. I spoke at the conference, Whole Life Expo. If you're doing those kind of conferences, there was one called Life Expo, I think, but they're no longer, I don't think they're still doing it. Of course, nobody's really doing expos the way they used to do it anyway. But I think our white brothers and sisters just need to listen differently and not run into we're all one. And it's because we're all one and because we're talking about wholeness is why we're looking at all of it. And if you're not willing to wrestle with your demons of why do we have to be all about color? That's your demon. You need to answer that question. Why do we have to talk about color? That's for you to deal with. So anyway,
yeah, that's
Leslie.
Great. Yeah, so many things. That's brilliant. I was reminded of I heard Brene Brown speak. Braving the Wilderness, maybe on our book on that, and she was the first person that I really heard bring up that concept of like we have this attitude of like you're either with me or against me, and why is it like that? You know, most of life is gray. I mean, on the one hand, and then the quote that you read, it's so beautiful because we'll stand on this platform of saying like, oh, it's so beautiful to be our unique selves and identify as how you are, but like we're also all one. So I don't know. Sometimes it blows my mind because I just don't understand. I just don't understand the hypocrisy of it all. And this is why I think these conversations need to be had, just to help people understand. You don't know what you don't know, and if it's not named or addressed or even acknowledged, it's sort of like when I first started learning meditation, and it was talking about like your feelings, and it's like, well, say hello to that feeling. Acknowledge that feeling and let it go. It's like, okay, so I could do it with all of this, but when it comes to like real things that I'm experiencing in the world, now it's like, oh, well, I mean, don't address it like that. And now, you know, we're talking about things like, you know, I feel kind of passionate about like all the censorship happening right now. So it's like, yes, we can speak, but don't speak about that because I don't actually agree with that. So now that's no longer free speech, but that's okay because this fills this other agenda. I'm like, what? And I can't even have a conversation about it because then that's turned into like, I don't like everybody. And that's not accurate.
Yes. I know 2 people. Well, yeah, 2 people that I found out yesterday. One was completely taken off YouTube, and another guy, he was taken off. He was blocked on YouTube, but he still had Facebook. And he was talking about, I mean, he was pissed. He was pissed in the way he used that righteous anger to express. So he went into politics. He talked about a lot of different things. And it's the same thing when we don't want to look at something, it's going to show up in another way. So people are being censored. It's like the idea of where you're spreading dangerous information. It's like some of the things that we've considered acceptable is dangerous. You know, some of the medical information is dangerous. You know, when a doctor tells a woman, oh, you're in your 40s, you're getting up there, you won't be able to have kids anymore. It's dangerous. Who said? Who said? Like if the medical practice from in the 60s, in the 50s, in the 40s, some of the things that we're doing back then, they would never dare do it now because they learn differently. So I don't even know, but I'm going to be generous and say the medical institution, the Western medical institution, tapped into the infinite, and they were able to define it. And then they look it through the small lens that unless a medication is approved by the FDA, then it's not good. You can't use herbs and stuff. It's ridiculous. If you're not saying something that is acceptable, then we're going to block you. How about have a conversation with the person? How about send an email and say, okay, can you tell us more about this? We live in a time where we need to express. We need to speak. I mean, yes, some people have hate speech there, we know, but we have to grow the fuck up, period. We need to grow up and say, how do we deal with people like that? How do we deal with people? Because the truth is, it's not people just BIPOC community that's been excluded. There are white men who feel like they've been excluded. And sometimes we can go, but what have they been excluded from? Well, have a conversation with them. People in America, rural America, feel like nobody's speaking to their needs. We need to learn. We need to grow up and speak, not just speak to what people need, but listen to people and hear their pain. And behind the pain, people start to feel they're being excluded. And if they feel excluded, they're going to exclude you. And then we'll start focusing on differences. And we can't celebrate differences because you're over there, I'm over here. Don't come near here. Don't come near me. And so, I'm grateful for the time we're living in, and I'm grateful for the countries we live in to be able to have this conversation. And, as long as I have breath, I'm going to speak the truth as I see it, as I know it, because my work is about matured love. It is about wholeness. It is about healing. And we can't exclude a part of us. August Wilson said, if you're willing to wrestle with your demons, you cause your angels to sing. And there was a time where I wouldn't even dare have this kind of conversation because I was worried about upsetting people. And I'm okay to have a conversation with people now, even if you disagree with me, that's fine. So this is the afterthought. I'm gonna give you the last word, not the last word, but you know what I mean. I know, right?
This was great. I would love to revisit this. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. I think, under the especially right now, everyone's trust science. How is science? I mean, you experiment, you dialogue, your studies are peer reviewed. It's not just take somebody's word for it, bada bing, bada boom. Yes. So, I mean, again, it's the hiding, it's the fright. I mean, I even know when we were setting up, I'm like, ooh, the whiteness of spirituality. What's that gonna, but as we were discussing, I was kind of like, okay, even the fact that I had that come up for me, what is that about, right? Mm-hmm. Like, why, especially as a BIPOC person, it's just kind of like, why do I feel guilty about that when I should feel very valid being able to
say that?
My spirituality was taken from my people, and then regurgitated back to me in a way that, again, I go back to tries to pacify me and makes me feel wrong when I'm just trying to address something that I don't understand. And I could go further into it, but I know we're trying not to, but this, I'm grateful. I appreciate you. I appreciate this time. I appreciate your courage and bravery for bringing this up. And I would love to see people continue the dialogue in the comments or engage. This is how change comes about. This is our manifestation center. This are the power of our voice, the power of communication. This is how we are able to celebrate our differences,
Yes. And I just want people to understand, this is not just about talking to people in white body. This is about talking to the BIPOC community. We need to be vocal. We need to teach spirituality the way we understand it. We need to put ourselves out there. Whatever it is that we feel like we don't have enough, we don't have the right marketing skills, call me. I'll put you on the podcast. As long as you have something that aligns with me and resonates with me, and I really believe that you're doing work that is transformative, we all have to share our platforms, not just share the mic, share platforms. And we need to be speaking up too. We need to be bold. Because it's not even, for me, it's not about white people need to go take several back seats so we can No. Keep doing what you're doing, but be more aware. And Black people, Indigenous people, people of color need to show up. And be brave. We need to show up. So anyway, Kay, the life coach, thank you very much. Kay, I think that's Kay, is female, right? I'm guessing. Kay said, thank you both. Very enlightening. Appreciate you both. We appreciate you too. So Leslie, thank you for joining for Afterthought.
Thank you.
And we'll be back. I don't know if we're going to do another. Well, we're going to do another one, but I just don't know when. So if you're catching this, make sure you you can like and share as well. We invite you to do that, but make sure you like the Being You podcast page on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, if you're watching there, just click subscribe and the all button. So that way, when we go live, Yes, youtube.com/LC radio. She got her own radio station. Well, have a great weekend, everyone. We'll be back on Tuesday with Ade Presents Being You. We have a guest, Deshauna, right? Deshauna, what's Deshauna's last name? I can't remember her last name. Spencer, right? She's the woman who started a streaming service that focused on content from BIPOC community. And so she's going to be joining us. We want to hear her story, and just highlight people who are doing work that are heart-centered. And so, yeah, I think we're done. Anything else?
No, that was great. Thank you.
All right. We love you. We bless you. We appreciate you. And we thank God for you. Peace and blessings. Yeah, yeah.